Sunset of the Scilly Isles. This wash that I'm putting across, I hope it's coming across okay. Just to kill the sky. This is going to hang together on colour and tone. Very little line work for the session. I don't normally work on an upright easel like this, but for this video we're going to work around this one. The paint that I'm using is Pentel acrylic gouache. Right, we'll just ease it there and just let that wash dry off. Right, I'm going to put the boats in, not too many. I'm using a Pentel brush pen. Using this for about a year and a half. It's fully waterproof. The colour is very rich and neutral. Very important thing when using pens, that they are neutral in colour. Some tend to lean towards the brown, some lean towards the blue. You can always tell when you drag down if it has got a warmness to it. You'll see it in the actual piece that you drag. If it's slightly blue, you'll notice in that this is, if you look at that, it's very, very neutral. These pens, John, are actually got replaceable cartridges. So once you've bought the pen, you keep the pen and buy the cartridges.
Mm. What pen are you using there? That looks a different pen to the one you've just been using.
Yeah, this is one of the Pentel 05 caliper, which I use for all the line work. Where I've put the darks in, that's going to be the darkest of the picture. That's set the tone basis to me that everything from now on will be lighter than that.
Mm. You've established your darkest dark.
That's right, yeah. Pen work, be very careful not to put too many lines in. You find in pen work that you start putting in a few lines and the picture looks brilliant. You put in a few more and it's overstated. The first wash was red and yellow, which is two primary colours. This next wash is blue and red. If you don't mix the three primary colours in the palette, it will never ever go muddy. This is a bit of kitchen towel. If there is less moisture in the brush, and all I'm doing is wiping the brush, than there is on the paper, it will remove the pigment, lifting out. Yeah, what it's exposing is the first wash or glaze that was put on, which was the red and yellow. Yeah, what I'm doing as the paint is now drying on the surface of the paper, I'm using the side of this brush, fairly dry, and it's hit and missing the paper. This is a standard technique. With this technique, the paper is as important as the paint on this. It's what touches, what kisses. With Bockingford, the brush has only got to kiss the surface, and the paint is there. And where the brush is just dappling over the paper, it's missing the dimples and just touching the high points, and it gives that texture. This is now softening that texture. Now I'm going to go straight into the water. Again, this picture is going to hang together on what we call aerial perspective. It's on colour and tone. The sun in this image has gone below the waterline. The paint will not go where the brush has not touched. Just to prove this point, I'll run that across. Now remember, this is not watercolour paint. This is Pentel acrylic gouache. You can see that where I've gone over, this colour's bled over, and where the brush pen has, it's fully waterproof. The pigment has got 15% acrylic base in it. It has no plastic fill, but the luminosity of the colour, the clarity is so good. Same method as I did with the sky. If you look at that, that's where it stained the paper. That is the acrylic going to work there. Again, I'm squeezing the brush out so it's damp and there's less moisture in the brush than there is on the paper, so you will lift the paint off. Right, I'm going to put the headland in, which is going to be very, very simply done in watercolour style. The colours used here are permanent red and viridian. Right, okay. And take out a little bit of the pigment. Right, see where this line actually dribbled down? I planned that. And I'm going to actually stick a bow. Yeah, just made for it, wasn't it?
That looks a lot more professional.
There you go. I won't even put any seagulls or birds in it. I'll just let the picture go. Thank you very much. Right, here we are again. We're booking for the £140 paper, not stretched. We've now got the format in portrait, not landscape. This little thing I'm drawing here is an owl. This is masking medium. And what I've done before I dip the brush into the masking medium was dip it into some water. And that will stop it ruining the brush. I've only ruined one brush in all the time I've been using masking medium, but it was someone else's at a workshop. The reason it ruined the brush is because it was so old, the masking medium, that it had gone off. Well, I knew it was quite old because on the top of the lid it said 309 pence. It has a shelf life. We'll just let that dry, and then we'll paint over that. Now that's dried, I'm going to put a wash over the top of this, which is the blue and the red. Start from the top again. This is a midnight sky. Let me just put that away. And the midnight sky is created with the red. Now could you keep sticking more and more blue into the picture? It's the red that gives the intensity, the darkness. Hopefully later I'll show you the mix on this. It's only two primary colours, and again it will not go muddy. Look at the strength of that colour. Isn't that incredible? Let me just go over that again. The brush is just kissing the paper. In fact, I think I've got a bit more water on that. That's it. Now remember, this paper has not been stretched at all. And as long as you don't press the brush too hard on the paper, it will dry back perfectly flat. Right, we'll just let that dry before we rub the masking medium off. For that midnight sky, that blue was used, which you can see is more of a Spanish blue than an English blue. But add it to the red, becomes the midnight. So it's the red that gives the darkness intensity, not the blue. Right, we've let this one dry. It's taken about 15-20 minutes because the amount of water we put on this one. And you you can tell that it's dried 3 or 4 shades lighter, exactly the same as watercolour. And what we're going to do now, we're going to carefully wipe off the masking medium. I think what we can do this is the white from the paint. There's 2 tubes of this. The covering power of this is incredible. All I'm doing is painting, resetting the shape of the owl, because the masking medium hasn't done the job I wanted it to do. Now there isn't many mediums you can actually do this with, water soluble level. I used to use designer gouache quite a lot, but as soon as I touched it with the watercolour paint after, it completely lost. It went milky. Right, well the white saved the day on this one, that's for certain. Not my skill. If you're just painting watercolour and you need to save the odd picture, this is the stuff. This will mix with watercolour, and if you're working solely in watercolour and you make a mistake, you can use the white to rectify that and then go back to watercolour, and the watercolour will actually granulate, the blue will granulate on top of this and will react just like the paper. Right, we'll just let that dry off and then we'll start blocking it in. Right, I'm now going to put in some of the colour. With the owl, some of the owl, the white, is the white of the paper, and some of it is the paint, and you just cannot tell the difference. The drying time is normally exactly the same as the paper itself. Another point mentioned, I think, for this is that the shadows on this owl are a lot warmer than the background, and it's the same mix as the background, except that I put a bit of water with it and a bit more red. So this is cooler and this is warmer, and that separates the two. You can see by the curl, that wing, by putting that shadow in, you've actually modelled that side. I've just put a mount round the picture just to get rid of the jagged edges. This is a demonstration just to show you quite simply how the white has saved the day on this picture. And I'm going to say this, I've done this a lot better. But without the white, this sheet of paper would have been thrown away and you'd have to start again. Thank you very much. I'm just putting a bit of plain water on the paper. 2 bands, one there, one down there. And this will soften the edge of the paint. This is pure blue. This is wet in wet, and a lot of cloud studies where I've only got a few minutes. A lot of times that's as much as I do, and that's all you have to get in. Think of this area as a playground. Don't put too much in. You've only got to get 20 or 30% the detail, and the rest will follow. It all looks rubbish outside. It's when you get it back indoors, and that's as simple as it can be. Right, I'm just going to wet this area of clear water. Then I'm going to mix yellow and red, and this is really going to indicate an afternoon sun with the storm clouds approaching. The granulation is caused by the amount of water you use. If you cannot get granulation, you're not using enough water. This is wet and wet. This is the brown and the green. Just a touch of viridian, and most of it's brown, kills the viridian lovely. There's quite an impressive view. That could be a lake. Watch this. Reflections that run right through the picture, the image. That adds movement to the water, and by putting the lines down, reflecting the local colour, then cutting through the whole image gives continuity. Never do it as an afterthought. Think about it before you start. And everything hinges on approach when painting on location and skies. If you can't do it, it's your approach that's wrong, not the subject. I've just put the mount round just to show you what literally a 3-minute watercolour sketch should look like. Keep it loose, do not put any detail in. It's the spirit that you're trying to capture, not the detail. And I must add that one of the hardest things for me was to actually draw and paint silver birches, and once I got used to the shapes and the texture of them, I wondered why it was so hard. That's the drawing finished.
Is this the less is more principle?
Something like that. putting some water with a little bit of blue and red in the mix to the paper. And for this I'm going to use black, just touching on the sides, and just let the paint run in either side.
Your hands in the way.
Sorry.
It's okay, just for next time.
The more water you use on the trunk, the softer the bleeding is. If you look at, say, this one here and this one here, there's probably another 50% more water used on this. Gives a softer feel to the actual stem of the silver birch. In the watercolour style, I would never use black, but with this black, it's a very juicy black, and when it dries it still holds up, it doesn't fade off like you do with normal watercolour. This black is very succulent, very juicy. And let me think. Shouldn't have a pair, should we? Must always be three. What I've done, you can look at that bit there, is that I've actually wetted the area down with a very faint mix of blue and red, and whilst that stem is wet, feeding the black pigment, you can see where it's been very wet there, and it's actually run right across. I think we'll just leave that to dry off now. With this sort of method of painting, which is very free and easy, very easy to overdo it. With these silver birches, the image seems to look very good, so you put another one in another one, and in the end it ends up like nagging. It's too many, it's repeating all the time. Edward Weston always said that when painting this loose and free style, especially on location, it takes two people, the artist and an onlooker. And the artist paints the way and the onlooker just watches. And when the onlooker thinks the picture is near completion, he produces a large plank of wood, hits the artist on the head, because the artist will carry on to its ruin. Like what I'm doing here. Right, I've left it about 10 minutes just for the silver birches to dry off. Now I'm going to do the background in one go with this. I've mixed a red and a blue, and there's too much red in there. I'm just painting round the silver birches because I want the contrast, the light against the darker, and the warm against the cool. again, you've got to work fairly fast with this. This picture, as you can see, is again on portrait, and what I've tried to do is actually run down the three silver birches at a slight angle that draws you actually down and up that line that runs across the picture. While the paint is still wet, you can actually work it. Let's put in a little bit more colour there. One of the problems with watercolour is where you get these hard lines, cauliflowers, they're normally called blooms on the side. This reacts exactly like watercolour up to a certain point. And there is a point, which I'll show you later, when the acrylic, the 15% acrylic base does take over. The main reason I don't get too many hard lines in this is the amount of water used. Two things you've got to watch is when the shine goes off the paper. If you touch the brush on the paper, you'll get that. You'll lift and there'll be that line. And if the paint actually comes down to where the shine's on there, you'll get this line here. And the only reason I keep this soft look is because I keep it on the boil. I don't let the paper dry out. I'm going to try and lose this bit here. I've mixed Iridium and the brown. And we're just trying to get a couple of tops of ferns or something. This is the rigger with no point on, and I'm just using the texture of the paper. It's very, very important to practice this and waste a few sheets. Right, just to complete the picture, I've mixed up a very thin wash of yellow. I'm going to put that on first. Let's just cover it in. You can see by the luminosity of the pigment how strong it is. I think I'll just warm up just a little bit maybe. This is about 1/3 paint and 2/3 water. You can see how this covers, just like this up here, that the covering power of this Pentel acrylic gouache is absolutely incredible. It will block anything out, absolutely anything. And if you make a mistake with this, you know, you cover up certain bits with the paint and you want to bring the white back, you can paint the white onto this surface and then you can paint and glaze over the top, and you cannot tell the difference between the paper or the paint. I'll just run a few shadows on the front. I just thought I'd break the softness up with a little bit of texture. And I think that'll do. Thank you very much. The paint that I'm using is Pentel acrylic gouache. I was introduced to it last August by my agent Dennis Horwood. And he rang me up and he said, Peter, he said, there's this new paint on the market from Pentel called this ACRYL gouache. I went, oh. I said, what does it do? He said, oh, it'll do anything. It's 15% acrylic in it, and you can mix it with all different things. You can handle it in any sort of manner. So I said, are you interested? I said, no, not at all. There's 2 million on the market already. But then he said the magic word, it's free. I said, I'll have a box. So he sent me this 1 box of paint, and it arrived 2 days before I was going to Turkey, and I thought, well, I think I'll throw it into the suitcase, and it quite literally saved the day on a number of watercolours when I was on holiday, which I hope I can show you later. Right, I've made a bit of a mistake on this. I've actually put this wash over the top of the host house, and if this was a normal watercolour, it would be ruined, but it isn't. It's our Pentel acryl gouache, and what we're going to do, we're going to paint that in white and go over the top. What I'm doing here is actually using the pen again to block in the sides, and this is done just to get rid of the white, and this is a snow scene, and normally when you work in watercolour from nature, we had the sun. All we have is the white of the paper, so it's what you do to the rest, you kill it. Now whilst that is just drying off, let me just show you, if you was going to put a shadow in the foreground, the most important bit of this picture at the moment is that bit. It's when people say, whoa, doesn't that snow look thick? Well, it's only the white of the paper. Recession. When doing snow, especially if it's far to middle distance, bring the sky and the wash down to almost the foreground, then indicate maybe the fields or whatever you've got there by painting over the top of the sky, and that in itself will give you depth and distance. It's as simple as that. What you can't see, you don't put in. Paint what you see, not what you know. That's taken from Ken Howard. Right, we'll just let that dry off. If there are any purists out there, shut your eyes. It isn't quite dry, but that'll be okay. Right, this is a very simple method of putting recession, putting something in its place by putting something in the foreground. It's a technique, that's all it is, and it's worth a red cent on its own. It's how you use it. But I've just put this as though we're actually going to be brought into the picture up to the host house. And this has been done by just using a rigger with quite strong colour, a brown and a blue, that was laid down there. And then where the light source is coming this way, fresh water is put and the colour just bleeds over. And it's always darker on this side and lighter there. And that just muddles the post. Never overstate the subject matter. Leave it to the onlookers to do that. You just put in the telegram, leave the rest to the onlooker. I'm just putting a little bit of interest, not too much, in the foreground. That is enough. Let's not bullseye it too much. Now I'm actually using the brush pen on top of the white. The white is not dry because I cannot wait. I want to try and finish this picture within a 6 minute period.
Yeah.
I put two birds up there. I don't know if you can see them, but I have this thing about even numbers. I always ask at the art demos how many birds I should put into this particular picture. And they always say to me 3, 5 or 7. And I always say, but do the birds know that? But if it looks right in nature, put it in. If it doesn't, leave it. Right, we'll let that go now. Whole picture from start to finish was 6 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just sketching out. Using the finger just to soften the lines, get the rough feel for it. Not too much there. Keeping the background in its place. The background. Sometimes colour gets in the way of tone. Now all I've introduced is the Viridian and this summer colour I've done fairly cool. All I've done with the green here, I'm going to feed in a bit of the brown. The difference between this and watercolour in appearance is where the acrylic actually bleeds up into the wet and wet on the top. It gives a lovely design. I'm going to use my finger to actually put this dry feel. And the knack is you just keep running the paint round and round on the palette or whatever you've got till it starts dragging. If it slips, it's too wet. Round and round. I can feel it just pulling. Once that pulls, I can then round and round. If it starts drying off, just stick your finger in the water. You can't see that, but If it's too wet, like that, this is what happens. You smudge it. If you want that locked in, that's fine, but keep it till it drakes. Let the tooth of the paper do the work. You don't have to put it all in, just the fill. Yeah, that's another 3 or 4 minute exercise, and that's as much as you need. This picture was done last week on the 13th of this month, and it's the Garrison Gate in St Mary's Basilis. I thought I'd just show a few pictures that I did in the week I was there, and the problems I've tried to overcome over the years of drawing and painting on location. This picture has been done with a 3B pencil. It's about 40 minutes work. What I used to do is draw the image, then destroy it with the paint. The knack is to leave the picture, the drawing, in its own right, and maybe do another one. And if you feel that you want to put some colour in, do the sky and leave the image. It's called the negative image. And if you feel you don't want to do any more work to it, then don't. Leave it. You can use it as a reference. Here's one of the Garrison Gate, which is ended up using pen work. By the way, this is all the ACRYL gouache paint used. And the paper is just normal cartridge paper. Again, this is only about 40 to 45 minutes work. So there's the one with the pen and wash. There we have just the pencil work. Thank you very much. I'm showing this one in the hope that this will help you in biting small bits off on location and not trying to paint the whole subject matter. It's fairly important to look at a picture outside and say what is the most important thing for you to paint, and leave the rest out. You cannot put it all in, no one can. This is one way of painting. I was sitting on the beach in St Mary's, Porth Cressa Beach, on the 11th, the 6th, and when I looked to my left, this was the view, the top one. This was started at 4:45 and finished at 15 minutes past. The middle picture was looking straight out to sea, which took from 4:15 to 4:35. And the bottom picture was taken when I looked to my left and started at 4:35 and finished at 4:50. So the 3 images were done in 1 hour and 5 minutes from the same position, sitting on the beach. It's hell out there, but someone's got to do it. Thank you very much. Right, here's 2 pens that I use fairly often. This one is 05. It's a superfine point, and it is a permanent marker. And they tell me that it's not transitional, it will not fade. Fine lines that it will do. It is fully waterproof. You can wash over the top. This is double the thickness. This is a number 10. And now we've got the felt tip on the front. And normally I run between 03 to 10, and that normally covers. And a word of advice again, when you're using these pens, don't play around too much with trying to get the detail. This is my favourite pen, or shall I call it a brush? Well, it's a bit of both. And the bit I really do like about this pen is that you can change the cartridges. The pen comes with 4 cartridges. Each one's got a ball bearing forced at one end, and you just tuck that in against the spike. Leave it 2 minutes, and the capillary action of the brush will come into force. And you keep using this pen till it runs out, and change the cartridge. You keep the pen once you've bought it. Now you can do that sort of line. Thin line. Let's play. It's fully waterproof. played with this pen for hours. I've used 7 or 8 cartridges in a day just to get the feel of it. It will miss the paper, go slower, take the pressure off, the line gets thinner, press a bit harder, the line gets thicker. Absolutely marvellous. Thank you very much. But just to show you, doubting Thomases, that this is fully waterproof. And if you want to do line and wash with this and paint over, you may. Hi there, my name's Buckley. I'm here to introduce you to the acrylic gouache produced by Pentel. There is 16 tubes in the box, 2 white, 1 black. The rest are all complementary colours. Each tube contains a full whack of paint which has click-on lids. You actually open up, and once they click, they are airtight. They contain 15% acrylic, and this is the key to this stuff. This is what makes it completely different from any other material. Once it's dry, it's totally waterproof. You can varnish it, you can paint watercolour on top, or keep painting with this. But you can glaze over almost any surface. If you actually bump up with this stuff, like with pure acrylic, it never gets that plastic feel. It always keeps that dryness, that fresco feel. And when you paint on top of different washes, it's always in the picture, not on the picture. Thank you very much. This picture is a pastiche. It's been copied from a picture that was painted in oil. And I just wondered if I could just change the approach from the oil approach to the watercolour. And what happened is that after a few washes on the background, it then became almost like an oil, where I actually started glazing and scrumbling. One thing I did leave as in the watercolour style is the jug. And the jug is the white of the paper. In fact, there's 18 glazes round that jug that I painted around, but the handle is the white of the paint from the tube and the top. Can you tell the difference? Because I can't. Also, these apples were actually painted on the background, and with, say, pure acrylic, you normally find that you'll be very careful when you do that method of painting, when what they call bumping over, that the objects you're painting is not on the paper. You're going to try and put it into the picture. With this, there's no problem, because there's no plastic feel with the paints. They're very dry, fresco feel, very vibrant, and the white, as I said before, when you look at the white of the paint to the paper, it runs through, it doesn't separate, it's 2 different pictures. Thank you very much. 5 minutes from the same position, sitting on the beach. It's hell out there, but someone's got to do it. Thank you very much.
It's hell in here as well. I'll get the chicken out, Pete, you're alright.
No, you keep that chicken in. I want that chicken in this video. drawer and it's overstated.
Mm.
So, further caution there. Right. Now, they're mixed up here.